RX Television on rxmuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave. You know the deal. Your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, diet, training, supplementation, bodybuilding world, beyond whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. So we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, that's where we're going to start with the first two questions of the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. And the question is about Chris Aceto. Jake Cutler said that when he was working with Chris Aceto, he was using metformin to help with all of his meals. He said he did use insulin, but changed to metformin. How could this have helped? And what, in your opinions, would have been the disadvantages?
Right. Once again, Dave Palumbo Experience app is my app. You can download it from iTunes stores and Android store. It's $29 a month. You kind of get me as your personal trainer in your pocket. All my videos and articles I've ever written are on that app. I do an exclusive Q&A video every week for that app. And also I answer everyone's questions on the app in an open forum, so you get to see everyone's questions and answers. We put up a workout every week. So it's a great gift for someone. It's great to have if you want to continue your education and keep learning. And so I encourage you to do that. As far as Jay Cutler, I never really mentioned Jay Cutler. I had known that Jay had some blood sugar issues when he was competing, and I think it was because he had to eat an enormous amount of food. He was eating like 1,000 grams of carbs a day. And when you're eating that many grams of carbs and you're taking growth hormone, what happens is you become very insulin resistant. And a lot of times your pancreas, either your receptors are not good or you just can't keep up producing enough insulin. Because let's face it, the pancreatic beta cells are small. How much insulin could they possibly produce? Our bodies are not made to eat 1,000 grams of carbs every single day. But as a bodybuilder, we sometimes need that because our metabolisms are so fast. So it's always a good idea to check your fasting blood sugars, check your blood sugars post-meal. And if they are high, and I'm pretty impressed that Jay was doing that on a regular basis, you got to supplement. I personally, back in when Jay was doing it, when I was doing it, no one knew about long-acting insulins. Everyone used short-acting insulin, so we would take them with meals to help absorb food. Sometimes people got fat from that if they had a slower metabolism. Maybe Jay experienced some of those issues because you can't really get it right. But with long-acting insulins today, it kind of works in the backdrop, so it just takes the burden off the pancreas. Yet the fast-acting is still being produced by your pancreas. It's the background of what we call the basal insulin levels that are taken care of by the long-acting insulin. So what Jay probably did, or from what he said he did, is he was taking metformin. Metformin reduces the output of glucose from the liver. So the liver is constantly releasing stored glycogen as glucose into the bloodstream as the body deems necessary. The problem with that is that your body has to release insulin so you can absorb that glucose. So if you can suppress some of that glucose production by the liver, your insulin requirements are lower. So some people get some results with taking metformin. The problem is you're really not taking the burden off the pancreas that much. So if you're eating that much food and you're taking a lot of GH, a better solution is to just take a long-acting insulin so that the pancreas now can use most of its insulin for meals, fast-acting release for the meals, not in the backdrop. So, people always thought of insulin as like Milos uses as a performance type of thing to get like an exogenous burst of insulin to try to get more muscle growth, which works in some people, doesn't work in other people. But the truth is what we're talking about here is taking a long-acting insulin because our bodies can't produce enough of the stuff when you're in that situation where you're eating an enormous amount of food and you're taking GH, which puts another strain on the pancreas. So, I think that probably Jay, if it worked for him and he kept his blood sugars in check, then it was fine. But for most people, that's not going to solve the problem.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, the diets, pre-contest, off-season, drug use pre-contest, and off-season, the training that you posted on your app, can we use them at an age, no matter 30, 40, 50 years old? Is it the same for all?
Yeah, on the Dave Palumbo Experience app, I have a lot of different drug cycles for people on there: off-season, pre-contest, women, men, that kind of stuff, maintenance, or HRT. So you can't, it's a template. It's not. I can't, if a guy's 280 pounds or if he's, 180 pounds, it's the same cycle I have up there. But yeah, obviously you can modify the dosages depending on what the person's needs are and their experience level. So if I'm 60 years old, if I'm working with a guy who's 60, 65, I'm not going to give him the cycle I'm going to give a 20-year-old kid because, first of all, he doesn't need that much. Number two, it's too toxic for his body probably to take super high dosages. So, I might give him, instead of 1,000 milligrams testosterone a week, I might give him 600 or 700 milligrams a week if he's still actively competing. If he's looking for maintenance or just putting on a little muscle, I might give him 500 milligrams a week. So it really depends on what the mindset is. If you're actively competing, the dosages will be similar, maybe a little less. Guys from 20 to like 45 usually is pretty much the same dosage based on body weight, obviously. And then as you get a little older, I pull all toxic compounds out. If I work with a lot of guys in their 50s and 60s, even into their 70s, and I don't give them anything but long-acting injectables. They're the least toxic. They really have virtually no toxicity. The only thing you have to worry about with anabolics when you get older is your blood pressure, because sometimes they'll make you retain fluid. It can raise blood pressure, and we know blood pressure is not good for the kidneys. High blood pressure, that is, not good for your heart function. It can cause obviously strokes in your brain because the blood vessels become a little bit more fragile as we get older. So blood pressure is something you really want to keep an eye on.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us there, the handle is official_RX Muscle. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, welcome. Subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, we appreciate all of your support throughout the course of the calendar year. And of course, throughout the course of the week in terms of all the different variety of shows, segments, topics that we have on the channel. Akshay Pandey, AK47. Good one here because he's asking about creatine and whether or not you can mix it with hot coffee. I've tried unsuccessfully, and maybe you could tell me a better methodology behind this, to mix Isolyze with coffee. But for whatever reason, I can never master it. Always, maybe I'm just not doing it right, or maybe there's a different method. So first, creatine, can you mix it with hot coffee? And then I guess, the vast majority will probably want to know as far as whey protein Isolyze with hot coffee.
First of all, if you watch this show every week and you haven't subscribed to the channel, shame on you. But getting back to the question at hand, I don't know why anyone would want to put creatine in hot coffee. I never heard of that combination ever in my life. There is some research to show that caffeine could, and creatine don't really mix so well together. Look, what I recommend is either do it first thing in the morning, the creatine. You could throw it in water or juice if you're not dieting or something like that, and just gulp it down. Or what I usually tell people to do is post-workout, especially if you're off season. I have them, you're doing your whey isolate shake, you're doing your, some kind of high molecular weight carbohydrate shake like my Carbolyze product, and just chuck 5 grams of creatine into that and mix it all in and gulp it down. I mean, that's probably the easiest thing to do. I don't know why anyone would want to put it in coffee, but, drink your coffee as your coffee. Don't mix the creatine in with it. As far as what you were saying, Sid, is I've mixed Isolyze very successfully into coffee. Sometimes if it's super crazy hot, it kind of like doesn't mix right. But, into it, I've put, I have a lot of clients of mine who like to use creamer in their coffee, or even the, dairy, like that Coffee Mate stuff. I said, look, you're not using that on a diet. Use, a teaspoon of Isolyze. And everyone says it's delicious. So I don't know. Maybe you had a problem with it, but I'm not sure. But you know what even is really good, especially if you're a caffeine junkie like Sid, a teaspoon of the coffee Isolyze, which has some caffeine in it already, into your coffee is amazing. It tastes like a Starbucks Frappuccino. It's really, really good.
Well, that I've been having on its own, and that sort of, I guess cured my cravings and the combination of, No, but that's... It's the best one.
I know people who take instant...
I used to be a vanilla peanut butter Isolyze guy until that.
That's mine.
Yeah,
that's mine. Oh. I know a lot of people who mix instant coffee into their Isolyze shakes too. They blend it into there, and they say it's amazing too. Look, there's so many different little mini recipes you can do. The key is always think protein first. You want to make sure you get enough protein into your diet. A lot of people will do like what I would do is, let's say a lot of people wake up and have a cup of coffee and they don't eat anything because it curbs your appetite for 3 hours. If you're going to do that and you're not going to get any protein for 3 hours, you might as well throw a scoop of protein in with your coffee, or make a coffee Isolyze shake, it tastes just like coffee with cream in it, and it's got it's got the same protein as the other Isolyze, 28 grams per serving of protein, and you get your caffeine in there, and because it's real coffee in there. So you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And I like iced coffee, so you can put that over ice. You could even heat it up and make it like a hot chocolate or a hot coffee. It works that way well.
Next question again from our Instagram feed. Relentless Luca, best time to get massages or therapy work done? Post workout, pre workout, or on off days?
I actually went to the chiropractor for the first time in probably like a year and a half or maybe more today because my neck was out, and I got one of those chair massages first, and I laid on the spinalator, which kind of this thing rolls onto your back, and then I got a great adjustment. And I purposely didn't go to the gym after that because if you do that, you're going to undo the whole adjustment. So if you're going to get adjusted on the day you work out, do it after you train, or get adjusted or massage on a day that you're off. But I used to like to go to the gym back in the day and then come home and get a massage because I had a girl who used to come to my house, and I felt that was great. It's not a good idea to get a massage or get adjusted, however, before you go to the gym.
Bodybuilding and wrestling. Is there something wrong when someone is doing squats and when they get to the push phase, their knees are coming closer together before getting back up? No pain, no discomfort, just the knees are coming together when pushing.
Yeah. I like to keep the knees open. So when I squat, my knees kind of flail open. And what that does is it enables you to interact, or I guess you could say, engage the adductor muscles, which are those inner thigh muscles. If your knees are pointing straight forward, it kind of throws all the stress on the front quads, and you avoid using those adductors. But what people don't realize is that the adductor, I'm going to dread doing this. The adductor is, your inner thigh. That's where all the meat is right here. So if you're squatting straight on, you're only hitting quad. Once you open up, you're using adductor, and that's gonna add a lot more thickness to your legs. So I think it's a very good idea when you come down to open those legs, and then when you come back up, let them naturally close, but don't let those knees like buckle in like that. That puts a lot of torque on the knee too, and a lot of times people have knee pain because of that.
Let's go to Excellent 187. Can you explain the physiology behind growing a lagging body part? How can one exclusively bring up a body part without the rest of the body growing to a point where it takes away from the appearance of improvement on that concerned body part?
You got to figure out what the reason the body part's not, responding is. Are you overtraining it? Which is what a lot of people do. They have weak arms and they train it like twice or three times a week, and then the arms actually look worse, because of that. Are you not feeling the muscle engaging? Maybe you're doing exercises that you see other people doing. Like I used to do skull crushes, for triceps, and my triceps never got bigger for some reason. Meanwhile, I saw other guys doing skull crushes, and they were getting these huge, monstrous triceps. So I thought I had to keep doing them. And what I realized was because I wasn't feeling it in my triceps, even though I was using perfect form, it wasn't an exercise because I have a long arm. It wasn't an exercise that worked for me. So I went and did more isolation. I did reverse grip pull downs, or I did cable overheads, and I found that worked and hit my arm better. And so I use those exercises, and engage them more. And I think that what people do, they're so caught up in doing a certain exercise that they think they have to do it. Now, assuming you have one arm a little bigger than the other, and you have the right exercise selection, you just want to bring up like a weak side, you might want to do a couple of unilateral single, arm movements or single leg movements if it's a hamstring or a quad to bring that one side up. But if you have a lagging body part on both, like your chest is lagging, say, don't train it more. You might want to even train it less often with more intensity. But what a lot of people do is they're just not using good exercise form in the gym, and that's why the body part is not responding. I had a weak upper chest for the beginning part of my career, and I had to retrain myself how to incline bench press. I had to keep my elbows out more. I had to keep my chest up. I had to make sure that I didn't roll forward and use my front delts, and I would always stop the set when I couldn't push with perfect form anymore. If I had to feel like I had to try to cheat, I stopped because I knew that what I was doing is I was using my dominant shoulders to overpower, to take up the slack for my weaker pecs. And so I just limited myself by what the pecs can do. And little by little, they came up in size and they came up in thickness and development. And I found that by training them less frequently, once a week, doing less sets, only maybe 10 or 11, 12 sets rather than 20 sets, they improved because I was focusing more on the sets that I was doing.
Let's go to try to get off training for a second here. Juan Espy. We've talked about different methods for carving up before a show, but he wants to know specifically best way to carb up for a show after dieting down on a keto diet.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. when you're on a ketogenic diet, your insulin receptors are really, really good. Why? Because you're not eating carbs. So your body thinks, the cells think there's not enough insulin receptors to absorb the glucose, even though the body doesn't realize there's just not enough glucose because you're not eating it. So your body creates a lot of new insulin receptors. So when you start carbing up, okay, whether it be 2 or 3 days before, your body really efficiently absorbs those carbohydrates. The thing is, what a lot of people make a mistake is with the ketogenic diet, they're eating a high protein, moderate fat diet if you're doing my ketogenic diet. And then what they do is they say, okay, I'm going to carb up. So they take the fat out and they put the carbs in its place, which seems logical to do, right? But what happens is you're actually lowering your caloric intake now because fats have a lot of calories per gram. So now you're actually eating less calories as you're carbing up. So what happens? All the carbs that you're carbing up with get used as fuel, energy, and they don't get stored as glycogen. You wind up getting really flat. So the key is carbing up, at least I think all carbing up should be done like this, is stay on a high protein, moderate fat, plus add the carbs. So you're adding the carbs on top of what you're eating already so that those carbs can get stored as fuel and those carbs can get stored as glycogen in the muscle and your body can continue to use the protein that you're eating to repair muscle. Because even if you're not training the last 3 days, you're still repairing muscle because you've been killing your body for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then the fat also that you're consuming can be used as a fuel source plus as an adjunct to obviously helping to repair muscle and being used for all the other essential things that it's used for. So the key is don't take stuff out, add on top of it when you're carbing up. And you're not going to get fat because your body has no glycogen in its storage. Your body's going to store all that glucose as glycogen, and that's what you want.
Let's go to Peepers 2011. Any recommendation on how to heal elbow/top of the forearm pain? I'm using straps on pull day, avoid skull crushers and hammer curls, but the pain goes from one arm to the other in perpetuity.
I don't know what your exact problem is, but I'll tell you, I can only relate to what I went through when I was training. At some point, I've told the story 1,000 times before, but it warrants mentioning it again. When I got really, really big at some point, I said, you know what? I don't need to train my forearms anymore. They're pretty damn big. I'm lifting all this weight. So I stopped training my forearms. I was still benching and doing everything I normally could. And what I would start noticing is wrist pain here. And I didn't know what was causing it. Okay. It was twofold. And also occasionally I would pull this brachioradialis muscle, like grabbing heavy dumbbells off the floor so I could bench press them or shoulder press them. And I couldn't figure out why I was doing this. And then I realized because I sat down and tried to analyze everything I was doing, I said, you know what? I wonder it's because I haven't trained my forearms. So what was happening was I was creating a weak link in the chain. My forearms and my wrists, your wrists get strong when you do wrist curls and, for forearms. This was a weak link. So even though it looked big, muscularly speaking, all the little accessory muscles and connectors in there became weak from me not doing the forearms, but everything else was super strong. So I was grabbing these heavy dumbbells and yanking them off the floor, and the weak link was given out. And so I was pulling forearm muscles and I was hurting the wrist. What I did was I started going back to wrist curls like this, reverse wrist curls, and I would do those 2 or 3 times a week for the first 2 weeks. At first, they hurt like hell, especially because I was injured in one of the areas. Little by little, they got stronger and stronger, and then I went back down to once a week, and I never had another. Ever since, I still, to this day, still train forearms for that reason. Never leave a weak link. Another thing is when you're lifting heavy and deadlifting and shrugging, you better train your neck. Some gyms have, like I know Bev's has that 8-way Nautilus neck machine, but you can do it. They usually, sometimes on the cable machines, they have that little thing that sits on your head and you can kind of do neck exercises with it. You don't train your neck, you're going to start pulling your neck out. You're going to be at the chiropractor 3 times a week getting a neck adjustment. Don't create weak links. Train everything.
Let's go to Bernie. How common is high creatinine associated with increased muscle mass? My CR is 1.5. I asked my healthcare provider to test my cystatin C levels as well. So I guess I know we talked about creatinine levels, but I guess the link between that and increased muscle mass.
Guys who have higher muscle mass tend to be on the higher normal side of creatinine when they get their blood work tested. Now, the 2 markers for kidney that are routinely tested are BUN, or blood urea nitrogen, and creatinine. The problem with BUN is that it's very, very sensitive to hydration levels. So, they want you to do fasted blood sugar blood work So you go to the, you have a 9 o'clock appointment or 10 o'clock appointment. You haven't eaten anything or drank anything from the night before. So most of the time you're dehydrated. So the BUN is not a good marker, but creatinine is much more accurate even if you are dehydrated. So if you're running over 1.3, or 1.35, I forget the exact numbers, because everyone's a little different. I know African Americans could be a little higher because they run higher, and Caucasian people run a little lower, but about 1.3, if you're over that creatinine level, okay, and you're not taking a creatine, because if you take a creatine supplement, that could jack it up too. Assuming you're not on creatine, that's borderline. If you're starting to throw 1.4s, 1.5s, like you're saying, I would get cystatin C checked, because cystatin C is much more specific, and I've been talking about this for 8 years now, much more specific for kidney damage. So if cystatin C is high and creatinine is high, your kidneys are stressed out, and you should absolutely immediately start doing something for that. What does that mean? Number one, if you have high blood pressure, control that. Get on blood pressure meds. Number two, cut your protein way back for a couple weeks, okay? 2-3 weeks is probably a good thing. I can even, if you want, I'll send you my detox program. Probably a good idea to follow that. And I sell a product called Kidney Stuff on my DavePalumbo.com website. It's phenomenal at reversing, high creatinine levels, because what it does is it opens up those kidney tubules, takes the inflammation away from the kidney tubules, allows the blood to be filtered more efficiently, and the kidneys will regenerate, but they take a lot longer to regenerate than the liver does. So what I would do is go on this 3-week detox program that I have put out there. It's a lower protein diet. You're only eating in a 12-hour window, and there's some other restrictions. You go on the kidney stuff, and then in 3 weeks you retest. If your creatinine's normal, then you're good. If it's still a little high, you might want to do another 3 weeks of lower protein with the kidney stuff. I have a guy right now, and I know he watches the show. He watches everything, and it took us about 2 months or 2.5 months to get his back to normal, but now it's normal again. So now he's going back on his regimen. It's very important. Don't ignore high creatinine, okay? Because just because you have a lot of muscle mass doesn't mean that your body should run high creatinine, because your kidneys should be filtering this blood and getting that waste product out of there. And if it's not, and it can't handle it, then you're overwhelming the kidneys. Could be because you're eating a lot of protein, could be that you have high blood pressure, could just be that, you haven't given your body a break for a number of years. Give the body a break, let the kidneys regenerate, and they will come back to normal. If you go to the point of no return, which is over like 2.5 creatinine, now you have probably more than likely have some permanent damage, or at least some damage. It's going to be a lot harder. So always check your blood work every 6 months. If it is a little high, do something about it, get it back down, and then you can restart, so to speak.